Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about anger, what it is, and based on what it is, how exactly to talk through it so you can become more and more aware of it so you can use it in a healthy way in your life. Not denying anger, anger is healthy, we need it. But the question is, how do you use it in a productive way? I'll show you how to talk through it so you can do that, and then I'll go through an example of talking through it, just to make it as concrete as possible regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because that'll be good for search results. So first, to anger, what is it? It is a physiological response in your body. Call those emotions, feelings that lets you know what. There's two causes to anger. The first is a need. I'll say unmet need. I mean, obviously it's going to be unmet. There's a need out there, a want. What's the difference between a need and a want? Not going to go into that now. Get my book for further explication on that. But there's an unmet need out there, or a want, either way, that has gone on. Yeah, it's gone unmet. So now you get angry. Anger is, physiologically very important for you. It's adrenaline. It's dopamine. It's what we try to mimic with like energy drinks, modafinil, other kinds of stimulants, amphetamines. People rely on these typically, and by typically I mean all the time, when they have an unhealthy relationship with their anger. They have a difficult time feeling it and expressing it in a healthy way. So you need, Rockstar energy drink. Do people still drink that to give their body that feeling of anger? Another way of saying unmet need is there is an injustice. Injustice that needs to be rectified. So this comes into your boundary here, which will depict as a dotted line. There's some defined parts of your boundary, some undefined, some gaps in the boundary. The boundary is just unconscious issues that you have made conscious. That's what your boundary is. And we're going to make it, more solidified by going through anger and how to talk through it. Okay, so once anger is in your boundary, there's three things that you can do with it. The first thing is to avoid it, and this becomes sadness. You're sad. You're sad for long enough, and it begins to change your body physiologically, and then you get depression. And you may need some drugs to help you out with that. Not necessarily. Anger stored up is sadness. Sadness is anger stored up. It's not very useful, right? So how do we become aware of the anger again? We become aware of it. We meditate, we journal, we look at what our needs are, what injustices are out there. You make a list of what you want in your life. When you're sad, you get really concrete and specific with it. Maybe it's not what you want, but at least what you think you want at the time, and you will begin to get more angry, which is good. It's healthy. We want to get there. But there's one thing. There's a line of consciousness and unconsciousness here. Again, it's not quite that definite, but we're back up here at anger. There's still something that you can do that's unhealthy with anger before we can do something constructive with it. You don't have to do the unhealthy thing, but just to go through it all. So the second thing you can do with anger is you can dump it onto other people. I call this hostility. This is when you dump anger on somebody else. Common examples of this would be like a temper tantrum. Ever see somebody like an adult throw a temper tantrum, and other people who are equally as bad at managing their anger are around them trying to help them. So that can happen. Also, jealousy, that's anger about the future. Oh, somebody may have something that I cannot get. That is an anger issue directed towards the future. Anger issue directed towards the past is sadness. And revenge. You have this anger and you feel it, which is good. I mean, that's a step in the right direction, but you're just dumping it into somebody else. You're like, hey, you deal with this. I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. I'm going to get jealous and lash out. And what's the way out of hostility is responsibility. I'll just put there. You take responsibility for your hostility. You see how it is your issue, not the situation out here. necessarily. This could be your issue too, but before we do that, before you do the Jocko Willing thing and take full ownership of everything in your life, you need to get really honest about how your emotions in your life, especially, your emotional issues, your unconscious emotional baggage. I'm just saying the same thing in a couple of different ways, how that is your responsibility. We'll go through it in the example to clarify that, but just to go over it for now. And then once you're back up here in anger, now you can do something healthy with it. You can assert it. You can assert it, and then you can, every time you do that, you get compassion. Compassion is a barometric reading of I am he, as you are me, and we are all together. Right? That's what compassion is. Now, what people try to do is they go from, they're feeling sad or hostile, and they want to, that's a weird word to say, hostile, and then you want to feel compassion. So what do you do? What's the popular thing is you make a gratitude list, and you're down here and you're pretending like you're up here, but you're not up here because you haven't done the work. You haven't taken responsibility for your anger, right? So you're going to make yourself feel good in the moment, but it's not going to last. You're just giving yourself a good positive mood with your gratitude list. It's really not improving your psychology in any extent. So yeah, assertiveness is, you just take your anger and you put it out in the environment, you put it outside of you. Usually you communicate it with somebody and say, well, how do we work on this? And part of that is, okay, so what are your needs? Okay, let's negotiate here. Let's figure out how to get both of our needs met. That is assertiveness. That is, and with that, every time you get compassion, this sense that I live in a world where I can get my needs met and you can get your needs met, and we can be, brothers and have, a goodwill between each other. So that's anger, and this shows you exactly how to talk through it. The first thing you do to talk through your anger in a healthy way is to talk about the situation. The second thing is the emotion. Don't just say anger. What's the exact emotion? And then what does that emotion mean? This is where you bring up unconscious content. Then how am I responsible for this emotion? That's the fourth step. And then the fifth step here is, what could I potentially do? Not me necessarily, but what could somebody in my situation do to manage, to assert, to place this anger out in the world in a healthy way, given whatever the social context is, political context, whatever. So I'm going to talk through this because I had an anger response to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that happened recently. Not so much about the conflict, but about people's reactions to it. Look, I'm no Trump guy, but I am a big America First guy, so it bothers me, it annoys me. That's my annoyance. I get annoyed when I see, not other people around the world, I don't care. I get annoyed when I see Americans get pulled back into this Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There's no resolution because it's just tribal and it's about who can be the bigger victim. There's no resolution to this. So I get annoyed. So it's not the Israeli-Palestinian conflict so much as that I see my fellow Americans get pulled back into it. And if this isn't, look, I have a view on which side of that conflict I think is more in the right. Not in the right, but I think maybe more in the right, you could say. But that's not what I'm annoyed by. I'm annoyed by, what are you doing? Okay, so that's the situation. That's my feeling about it. Is it right? Is it wrong? It doesn't matter. This is outside the confines of morality at this point. This is just psychology. This is me managing my anger, my emotional issues about not what's going on, but people's response to what's going on. So why does it bother me? Now we're here to step 3. That's how you get to why. That's how you get to a good meaning, or a good shortcut is to just ask yourself why. I like to go 3 times, maybe a little bit more. Well, so it bothers me because tribalism bothers me. Why does tribalism bother me? Well, because it means you're less conscious. Why does it bother me if you are less conscious? Well, it just means we're not going to, there's just less of a chance of us being friends. I see America as, we're supposed to put the tribal conflicts, everybody Every tribe has their own conflict, and coming to America for me means you put the tribal conflict behind you. It's not going to serve you here. Yeah. And so it bothers me. I get annoyed when I see you getting pulled back into it, because I think, well, now we're not going to be able to get along. Now we're not going to be friends. But what does that mean? Why do I feel that? Well, behind that must be the belief that if you're not fully conscious, this is me talking to myself, if you, Mark, are not fully conscious, then, or if you out there are not fully conscious, then then that affects me in some way. That negatively affects me in some way. And I guess, so why would I think that? Is because belief beneath that is, if you're not fully conscious, that negatively affects me. Which, I guess it's kind of true, but so what? Right? And I think when you do the meaning, well, you can tell I've done this a lot, because the meaning now bleeds kind of into the responsibility. So what's my responsibility in that? Is, well, first of all, that shows that's an unhealthy need for people to have a certain consciousness in order for me to be happy. Because now my need is somebody else's consciousness being a certain way. So that would be, as we talk through this. Now, look, and here's why this is important, because I could look out here and say, oh, look, I'm annoyed by those people out there. And I immediately go, oh, well, that's not right to be annoyed by that. You're wrong to be annoyed by other people's reactions to something. That's true, but that's not going to help. That's really not going to help me become aware of and process my anger so I can use it in a healthy way. Right? I need to go through it. I've done this thousands of times. I still need to go through it. Because I really got to see. I can't just say what I know is right. It's like looking at the answer in the back of the book when you're doing your chemistry homework. You can't just look at the answer. You got to work through it yourself to really see and really become articulate, really be able to articulate your anger. So yeah, this is going to bleed into responsibility. Shortcut for responsibility is BCR. What's the BCR test? Benefit. How do I benefit from this anger? Well, the first thing is I get to feel self-righteous, which I enjoy feeling. It's a great drug. Just to go around and criticize others and have arguments in your head and tell yourself how you're more right than other people. Even if you are right. And by the way, I do think I'm right about this, but that's immaterial at this point. The point is, I'm feeling self-righteous, and that's a familiar feeling for me. I get a lot of benefit from that. It makes me feel important. It makes me feel like I'm smarter than everybody, even if I am smarter than everybody. I'm not saying I'm not. And then the C is, what's my contribution? Okay, so I clearly don't have much control over how people react to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in America. But what other points of annoyance in my life is contributing to my being annoyed by people having, getting sucked back into this tribal drama that there's no resolution to, besides individualism, which is what I'm explicating here, of course. Well, what am I annoyed by? Just off the top of my head, I'm annoyed by my dog. Not my dog so much, but she needs a haircut. And the guy who cuts her hair is really up his own ass. And he just in subtle ways tells me how to treat my dog and how to raise her. So last time he said that her collar was on too tight. It wasn't. You could easily put 4 fingers between her neck and the collar. It's not on too tight. And then he loosened it himself. And he's telling me how to raise my dog. And so I could say something to that guy. Just be like, what are you doing? Just mind your own business. I know you think you're helping, but you're kind of being a jackass. And he was a jackass to me on the phone, and it was just in a very subtle way. So I could say something to that guy. Just be like, hey, just stop with the preaching and the pontificating here. Just cut my dog's hair. It's fine. I'm taking good care of her. So that's an annoyance. There's something in my life who I can talk with directly, right? And something else that bothered me is I was walking around the neighborhood and somebody left like a really passive aggressive note on somebody else's car. Like I guess they weren't parked well. And just like we live in a nice neighborhood in here and it's safe and the school's good and everything, but I'm a little bit dissatisfied. I'm a little bit annoyed with parts of the neighborhood, and that's one of them. So what I could be working on, right, is I could be working on communicating with the guy who cuts my dog's hair. I could be working to get me and my family in a better neighborhood. Plus, we don't have much of a yard, and I'd like to have a yard as my kids grow up. Still, we live somewhat close to the ocean, and so I would like a yard, but still live somewhat close to the ocean. So that's like something for me to work on, right? And that's all me. And if I had those things in my life, just imagine, if I had those things in my life, how much would I be annoyed by people getting sucked back into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Yeah, I mean, as I'm talking through this, I can begin to see that, maybe it's not so much about the people who get sucked back into this conflict. Maybe it's about me and, palpable, sensuous, emotional issues that are right there in my environment. People who get sucked back into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that's just vague. It's just this vague group of people who I have very little interaction with. As a whole, I think I have interaction with some in my daily life, and I can talk with them, but that's not going to help that much. And I do. And then, okay, so that's contribution. Sorry, I kind of got sidetracked there. But yeah, it really just helps to talk through this and think through it. You can see how I feel my boundary. It's like a sobering feeling. I just feel my boundary solidify as I talk through this. And then R is relate, not responsibility. It's how do I relate with the people? In any conflict, a good way to take responsibility is say, how do I relate with that person? And, it kind of hits you in the face as you talk through everything else here. And yeah, there are these Israelis and Palestinians living in America who get sucked back into the conflict, but who else is getting sucked back into it, right? It's me by proxy. Now, this isn't moral equivalency. I'm not saying, I'm just as bad as they are. It's not that. Now, I could be just as bad as they are. I don't think I am in this situation. You'd be the judge of that. But I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm getting sucked back into the conflict by criticizing them and feeling self-righteous and saying, why can't you just put the tribal conflicts of your past in the past? Let the dead bury the dead. Why can't you do that? Well, because I'm not doing that, right? By getting sucked back in and complaining and feeling self-righteous about it. So now I can see how all this baggage, this anger issue baggage, right? Anger good, anger issue unhelpful. So now I'm back up at my level of annoyance and say, okay, well, what can I do to assert this issue, to take the anger that I still have and put it out in the world? Like I said, I could let the guy who cuts my dog's hair know that he's annoying, and to mind his own business. Constantly work in the background to get my family a better yard. That'll help a lot. And just to continue what I just express my opinion about what I think, just what I honestly think about Israelis and Palestinians, or people who have a strong view on it living in America getting sucked back into it. Just let them know that I think it's incorrect to do that, and express what I think, my views on what America is, or what it, quote, should be. And if people disagree, that's fine, we can hash it out. But those are clear ways that I know I am able to manage this issue. And I just get maybe you don't feel this shit, but I definitely get more of a sobering I have more of like a sobering view of it now, even as I'm talking through that. And I went through notes yesterday. What's interesting is I went through notes yesterday and I'm like, okay, what am I going to say here? But I didn't talk it out. Now that I'm talking, it's just different talking it out. It just really helps you, me, everybody just connect and put the pieces together. So look, that's anger. That's how you talk through it. There's an example for you. And if you have any questions, or if you want help with this, if you want to find out more about what I do, join animist.com/schedule. We do free consultations. I just want to hear from you, see what's going on. And I guess that's it. Thank you guys. And I wish you all the pain and joy that comes from approaching your anger for exactly what it is.